Hey there, I'm Joanne Raguto, and I am in the studio of mosaic artist Mimi Neer.
And this is construction.
How long have you been doing mosaic work?
2002.
Wow.
So it's been about, what, 21 years or something?
Yeah. And, what inspired you to become a mosaic artist?
Well, it's kind of a story,
Yeah.
but my father was a tile contractor, very prominent tile contractor in the city of Portland. And when I was 13, my mother was British, and we went to Europe. My family went to Europe when I was 13, and it was there that I was first introduced to mosaic and ancient mosaic in the museums and cathedrals.
Yeah.
And I knew right then that sometime in my life I had to do mosaic. And so when I became a young adult, after I finished school, I just happened to need a job. And so I went to work for my father, who was a tile setter.
Yeah.
And I was an apprentice tile setter for 5 years before I became a journeyman tile setter.
Yeah. So you did an apprenticeship through the Bricklayers Union.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. And then I worked for my father as a tile setter for 13 years. And then I became a contractor. And I was a ceramic tile contractor for at least 25 years. I'm still a contractor, but I no longer set tile. Now I do architectural mosaic. And architectural mosaic is mosaic work that is installed, like in a floor or a water feature, or it can be installed inside or outside. And I feel very fortunate because of having the technical skills I learned as a tile setter allow me to now be able to install mosaic work. And so that's been really helpful. So I'm very thankful for having had that and worked for my father in that time, you know. But once I became a mosaic artist, I just knew that I wanted to do that. And
no going back to tile setting.
that's right, yeah.
Well, now you're doing, fancier, masonry work.
Yeah, more artistic, yeah. And it's wonderful because I get to work in the studio.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I create. It's not like ancient mosaic where you were there putting it on a ceiling for months at a time, you know. Now it's done where I create in my studio, and then I take panels and install.
Yeah.
I do fine art as well, but I really love the architectural work.
Why do you love the architectural more than the fine art?
Well, architectural work is big, usually.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it's and honestly, it is easier to make money doing it, I think, than doing like framed art pieces.
Yeah, I can see where that would be.
People are willing to pay for art if it's in an architectural realm.
Yeah.
You know.
Portland has the 1% for the arts thing. Does your type of work come under that kind of umbrella?
I have done some percent for the arts work, but I don't these days. I did several years ago. I did a couple of different projects for the city of Estacada. They also have a percent for the arts.
Oh, nice.
And I did 10 mosaic panels in the floor of their library. And then I also did a commemorative 100-year anniversary water feature out in front of the city hall.
Is that the one that's on your website?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
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 Well, there's where the background in tile setting, one of the things that had come in real handy for that is you learn so much about the materials.
Absolutely, yes.
And I know you were working with your dad. I think me and my dad helped you guys out on one job, but you did a pretty wide range of applications.
Yeah.
And so you really learn a lot about the materials, which would help you, information that would roll over into what you're doing now with the mosaic work.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the fabric that I use to glue on the back of the glass, which is right there.
Yeah.
That's actually crack suppression fabric in the tile industry.
Yeah. When I saw you on your website, the video, and with you, because I was wondering how you were wrapping them, because you weren't out there setting all the little tesserae, one by one on site, and I'm like, how the hell? What's she? And I saw that, and I went, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
That's absolutely brilliant.
It really took me a while to come up with a good system because, there's a zillion little pieces and you do not want to have a mistake.
Yeah.
You don't want a failure. So I tried in the beginning, I tried face mounting it with paper, and that didn't work very well. But this is a wonderful system. It's actually a double reverse method, and I use Hydroblock, which is also in the tile industry, as the sealant. So that's what helps it to remain. It remains flexible, it's like rubber.
Yeah.
So
because you can, if you did that with a regular cementitious mortar, it wouldn't work.
That's right.
It would be okay if you were doing flat panels,
Right.
but not if you need it to be able to shape around any other kind of a surface.
Yeah, or to be able to create it in my studio and then go, install it somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. I've had very good success with that.
Yeah, a long time ago, I think it was when I was still doing the wildlife art. My older brother David, when he was contracting, did a big house, big fancy like a mansion, across the river in Vancouver. I guess it's right across from the airport. And the guy wanted a mosaic for his pool. He had this huge outdoor pool. And so David asked me, he says, hey, you want to do a mosaic? And nothing compared to what you do, right? I did, I think it was a trio of bottlenose dolphins swimming.
Oh, fun.
And I drew the dolphins out, got some reference pictures so I could see what they look like and how they move, and drew them all out by hand. And I think there was either 2 4-foot long ones and a 3-footer, or it was reversed. But I did those out of 2x2 porcelain, dot mount porcelain tile.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got, with your work, you've got, because you're doing pretty much traditional style work. You've got all the movement and everything. And mine was just, if you took a silhouette of a dolphin and projected it onto the tile, and I had different colors, because they get a lighter colored belly than they're counter shaded like many ocean animals are, especially the free swimming ones. And it's just looked like a dolphin cut out of a dolphin shape cut out of sheets of tile. Because once it was
still look good.
Yeah. Well, it was really simple colors too. I think I had gray, maybe gray and white, and then I did something different for the eyes, and I did an outline of them in those little square black tiles. Yeah, and I once that was in and the pool was full of water.
Sure.
It looked pretty good because you're looking at it through water and from a ways off.
Yes, absolutely.
But I didn't know how I was gonna. When he asked me to do that, I had no idea how I was gonna mount this because I was like, I can't just cut all this and hand you a box with numbered tiles,
Right,
and that's
yeah,
not
yeah.
going to work very well.
Yeah.
And so David had me face mount them with paper, and I think I used wallpaper paste.
Yes.
Yeah. And he went out and installed it, and
great.
the owner was really happy with it.
Great.
So I'm like, you know, as long as the client's happy with it, that's what's important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, but when you mentioned face mounting with something like this, I'm like, yeah, that would be a nightmare.
It would be, and it's such a labor-intensive type of work,
Yeah.
you know, that you don't want a failure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you want, I can give just a short description of what a double reverse method is.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so when I create, when I have a client that is interested in mosaic, I go to them and I have a conversation with them about the kind of ideas that they might have and the feelings they have and the kind of vision that they may hold. And then I come back and I design for them, trying to create, bring their vision to life, basically.
Yeah.
And so once we have a drawing that is in line with what everybody's happy with, then I take that drawing and I scale it to the size that I'm going to need, whether it be a large wall or a swimming pool floor or a picture. You know, it just depends on where it's going, and I scale it to that. And then I take just like this, I take the paper that the pattern is on, and if it's very large, I have to cut it up into sections, and I usually do that in like a jigsaw puzzle kind of, so that there aren't any grid lines when I put it back together.
Yeah, because no matter what you do, once you step back, you're going to see that.
Right, yeah, so it's all in just chunks, and I lay the pattern down, and then I put a clear sticky paper, like contact paper, on top of the pattern. So that just helps to hold the glass in place, not really strongly, but enough to keep it from falling around when I'm working.
Yeah.
So once I get that, then I start creating the mosaic with the color palette. And oftentimes I don't pre-color my pattern. I'll just do it as I go from my head. But other times I color it ahead. And like with this particular one that I'm doing, the swimming pool, this pattern is not colored, but I have the colored picture right behind me, so I can refer to it all the time. And once I get the mosaic finished, it's face up. This is what I'm seeing here is going to be the finish, okay? Once that is on, then I take wallpaper paste and cheesecloth, and I glue cheesecloth to the face of it.
Oh.
And that holds it in place long enough for me to take another piece of plywood and like sandwich it together, and then I can flip it over. This is why it's called double reverse. So I flip it over, and then I take that contact paper off, and then I take a fabric and the hydro block, and I glue the fabric to the back of the glass.
Right.
Once that's done, then I can flip it back over, and I can wash off the cheesecloth, and then this is what I have. And so then I have a piece that is then ready to be installed. It can be easily handled. You don't have to worry about things falling apart. And I'm using materials that are conducive to the tile industry, so it's compatible. So it's going to hold up. You know. And then once it's installed, then I grout it, just like you would grout.
Yeah. Now, with the when you cut the glass, especially like if it's on a floor or anything, is there any issue with sharp edges or?
That's the other thing that happens. This glass Can have. It's generally not sharp, but occasionally because it's a Byzantine style glass, and it is designed for mosaic, and it's a very crude glass, so it isn't all the same thickness, or you know, or it's none of it's really square. It's very crude.
That's one of the charms of the medium.
Yes,
the material,
absolutely.
The surface changes as you move back and forth.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the reflective quality that you get.
Yeah.
And so, but what I do, if it's a surface where someone is going to be walking, or a shower floor, or an area where there, or even shower walls, anything where you're going to be bumping up against it with your skin, you know, then I take when I'm finished grouting it, I take a grinder and sandpaper pads, grids.
Could you say that again?
So once I get it grouted, I take a grinder with different grids of sandpaper, and I grind it, I soften the top of it.
Oh, wow.
And the different grids of sandpaper allow me to bring that polish back up. It'll kind of dull it down,
right, yeah.
but then it brings the polish back up. And then that makes it so that there's no sharp edges.
Wow, it never occurred to me that you could do something like that. You couldn't do it with a lot of materials. Like if you were using ceramic tile,
Right.
you couldn't do that, especially glazed ceramic tile. I suppose the type of like porcelain, where it's a mixed
Same all the way
material.
through.
Yeah. You could. Well, actually, I've put bullnose on porcelain tile
Yes,
like that.
yeah.
But yeah, regular ceramics, you couldn't. Yeah, you'd be stuck.
I was really happy to discover that the glass, even though the glass is very hard, it's actually quite easy to soften it.
Wow.
So it's a long process, you know. I mean, from start to finish, it's a very labor intensive art form, you know. But I love it, and it's a mosaic is enduring art form.
Recently, there was, I just heard about this a few days ago, Roman mausoleum was discovered in, I think it was in the UK somewhere. It might have been was that in London?
It was in London,
Yeah, okay,
yes.
okay. Yeah, and we were talking about the mosaics. Yeah, I was like,
you know, they just keep discovering, in Europe, they just keep discovering more and more unearthing ancient mosaic. And it is so, you know, from my reading and studying of mosaic, I realized that it was a very prevalent art form, and there were like almost like guilds of mosaic artists that would go from town to town.
my grandparents came over here. My grandparents and two of my uncles, or my two paternal uncles, came over here from northern Italy, and my grandfather come over in 1910, I think it was, and then the rest of the family came over, I think, in 1915. And my dad used to tell me that my grandfather did mosaic work, and he said, and I have never talked to any of the relatives over in Italy, but Dad used to say, and my uncle, actually my Uncle Pete, used to say, because he was he come over from Italy with the rest of the family, and he said that his dad would go in the spring, and they were from a little town in northern Italy called Arba, and he said his dad would go out in the spring, because he was a tile setter and I guess he was a stonemason, and also did mosaic work. And they would go and work on various projects, you know, cathedrals and whatnot, around Europe. And then in the fall or the winter, when it got too cold to do that kind of work, they would come back to Arba, you know. And my dad said that my grandfather had done some mosaic work in Delft, and Holland, I think. Yeah, and Dad actually, I think he had a picture of my grandfather doing that.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
old
That's
black
pretty
and white
wonderful.
picture. And I don't know what happened to that picture, but I do remember, you know, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
It's really cool.
And they have the glass mosaic up at Timberline Lodge. And Dad and I, back when he first got into contracting after J.A. Wiley Company folded, one of the things that we did was some tile work up at Timberline in the lower entrance, you know, where everybody goes in, you know, during the winter, and there's that big mosaic on the wall.
Right.
And I looked at that, and I was like, did my grandfather or uncle? Well, my grandfather couldn't have done it because he died before before the Great Depression. But I said, did my uncle work on any of that? And he said, nope. He said, Mr. Ferrer next door worked on it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
there's a marble compass rose
Yes.
on the floor there too.
Yes.
And it was just so cool to see that. Well, you know, we were up there setting 2x2 porcelain tile, kind
Yeah.
of pedestrian.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
literally pedestrian because people are going to walk all over it.
Yeah.
This beautiful mosaic, you know, with bears and I
Yeah.
can't remember bears and trees and you know I think it was like the local wildlife. Yeah, it's like that is so cool.
Yeah,
You know?
it's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I fell in love with mosaic when I first saw it. You know, it's just an amazing art
It's kind of
form.
hard not to,
Yeah,
truly.
I think so.
Yeah. So, how did you wind up going to Ravenna?
Well, let's see. I went to Ravenna in 2000, the year 2000, and it was because I had decided that I really did want to stop setting tile and I really wanted to become a mosaic artist. And so I discovered the mosaic school in Ravenna, Italy, run by Luciana Noterni. And she's an amazing woman that teaches at the university in Ravenna, and she teaches renovation of ancient mosaic. Well, she also has a mosaic school that is that she has started that's separate from the university.
Oh.
And I found it online actually, and I know
wow.
that she still has it. And I went, and it was a wonderful experience because it taught me the laws of mosaic, and that's like the basics of mosaic. And actually, well, there's a piece on the wall over there. That piece and this little piece right up here were the first pieces that I did in the workshop.
Oh wow!
That I was in, and it was a great experience. I also learned about the hardy and the hammer, which are the ancient tools for cutting glass and stone. And I came home with a hardy and a hammer in my suitcase. And so that was my beginning in mosaic. And I feel like it's always good to start with the basics. And then what my teacher told me there, what Luciana said, was that you learn the laws, and then you can break the laws.
Yeah. I had a foreign language teacher, a Russian teacher, tell me that. She was like, we were in the class, we were saying things, you know, our grammar wasn't very good and whatnot, and she says, no. She says, you don't know the rules yet. She says, you're not allowed to break them.
Yeah.
She says, I know the rules, I can break them. We were using poor grammar because she had been using poor grammar. We thought she was speaking proper Russian.
I see.
And so I get the you know, once you learn the rules, you can, you know, then you can kind of make your own rules.
Yeah, you can expand on that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's been really fun, and I think that's really true in any craft.
Yeah.
Or art, you know,
Yeah.
Learning the basics is really important because it gives you a place to start from, you know.
Yeah.
And I had fun exploring once I came home and started. I haven't stopped, you know. I've made mosaic from then on, and
I discovered ways of creating shading and ways of creating flow and movement and
Wow.
reflection and feeling in a piece of art that that I, it all came from learning the basics and then expanding on
Yeah.
it, you know.
Yeah.
And that's been fun.
Yeah, well, it's new and fresh all the time.
Absolutely.
That's what I like about sculpting, and especially when I do my little tabletop sketches, and it's just an off the cuff kind of a thing. It's completely different. I don't know, with me, it's intermittent, but it's a spur of the moment thing because it's quick,
Yeah.
and because it's quick, it's gratifying.
Yes.
Yeah, but also because it's quick, it's like I have absolutely no idea when I'm going to do another tabletop sketch, or even pick up a piece of plastilina and start shaping it and just kind of fiddling around with it and see what happens.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, this I can see what you're talking about. You constantly coming up with new things and new ways of doing them, and new ways to show movement and all of that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really fun, and I have grown a lot artistically since the beginning.
Yeah.
It's been a really wonderful medium because I have to sketch, I have to draw, I have to understand
Yeah.
how to create the picture, and I didn't graduate from art school. I'm self-taught.
Yeah.
And so it's all been a really wonderful experience in more than just putting little pieces of glass on patterns.
Yeah. That's, I think, when people think of mosaic, they may not understand that it's just orders of magnitude more than just putting little pieces of glass or ceramics or whatever, down on a surface. It's
Absolutely.
yeah.
It is, yeah. And you mentioned ceramics or glass. That's another thing that I have noticed since I started doing mosaic. When I first started doing mosaic, I would tell people what I'm doing, and they wouldn't even, in America, they didn't even know what mosaic was.
Yeah.
Many people.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't current.
Yeah. It in the past, but I
Yeah.
don't know of any. Well, I guess maybe there's one or two large mosaic contractors still in the U.S. Maybe not.
Well,
It's kind of died out.
There are a lot of mosaic artists.
Yeah.
Mostly they use stained glass though.
Yeah.
And then also, like you were saying earlier, a lot of artists are now creating creating pieces out of ceramic.
Yeah.
And then putting that together as
Yeah.
a mosaic. And it's very beautiful, and there's some amazing artwork. I have to say, I'm very much a traditionalist.
Yeah.
And for me, I want to create each piece from many little pieces.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of hooked on that.
Yeah, well, and that's a part of the trade that needs to be kept alive. And if we don't have people like you doing the traditional style work, we're going to lose that.
Well, I think so too, and I think that there's nothing wrong with moving forward and exploring new
sure,
things.
yeah.
But at the same time, it is really nice to keep that connection.
Yeah, that's one reason why I'm doing this. Started doing this podcast is I want to try to generate interest in people who may not have even considered any aspect of the construction industry as a career, because it's becoming more and more difficult to find young people to enter into any of the trades. And if you don't have people, you don't have the trade. Just like if we don't have mosaic artists doing traditional work like this, we don't have the thing.
Yeah,
we don't have the mosaic.
That's right. And there's a the construction trade, having been a tile setter and a mosaic artist, it's something that you can take pride in.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that many young people don't realize today,
Yeah.
you know, is that there's a lot of value in taking pride in what you do,
Oh, exactly.
you
Yeah.
know, and in really learning something and being good at it and learning how to do something well and people appreciate you and you can feel good about it. You know, those are things that help to shape people to have self-esteem and
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Spot on.
I think that's really important.
Oh, yeah.
I like what you're doing. I like your idea of trying to open that up and expose people
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. And I have worked with people in the masonry trades who didn't like what they did, and I'm like, I feel bad for them.
I
Because
know.
maybe I love it because I grew up in it, like you grew up in it, but I'm like, wow, it's just I don't know if I could handle working in a job that I didn't like.
I know. Me
Yeah,
neither.
and
and they're
but
missing out on so much.
yeah, well, you're losing a part of your life is what you're doing,
Absolutely.
and that sense of pride in what you do every time go past a structure that you've worked on, you can say, it brings back memories.
Yeah.
I just one of the things I'd like to do is, as you and I both are, is have guests on who are in construction families.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that type of generational pride is I think it just helped make you a better person.
It really does.
You know.
It really does. You know, I just got done I was a project manager for a bathroom remodel on the coast. And I hired a tile setter to do the tile work there who was out of Astoria. And I tell you, his father had been a tile setter. He was a tile setter. And they did excellent work. And they were proud of themselves. There's something about being able to carry through something that it takes something to be good at it.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and none of the trades are unskilled labor.
That's right.
You gotta,
That's exactly
when you
right.
look at how long it takes to do an apprenticeship, as far as how many on the job hours and how many classroom hours, it's very complicated.
Yes.
And when you get through all that, and then you go out, and especially if you go out on your own, like you did, and like I did for a little while, you go out and you're in charge of a project, and you take it all the different steps from concept to completion.
Yes.
And I can't imagine how anyone wouldn't be, it's a fascinating journey.
Absolutely, it is.
Every single job is a fascinating journey. Every mosaic is a fascinating journey. And you learn things, some you learn more on than others.
Yeah.
Some you learn things you wish you didn't know. There's always that.
Yeah.
But just getting people interested. I want people. It's like sitting here talking with you. I can see how much you love what you do, and I just hope that together in this episode we can inspire other people to maybe consider, if not mosaic, then maybe tile or stonework or paving. Any of those, because all of them have fascinating stories behind them, and every single person working in every single trade has a fascinating story on every single job.
Well, that's really true, And another aspect about it is that it's hands-on.
Yeah.
You're using your hands, and that's something that's not as common these days with the whole computer industry and everything being, digital or whatever the term is. I don't know, but I really feel like there's something to be said to be able to use your hands to create.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And with the finishes end of construction, or part of construction, it's easy to see. But the people who are doing the structural or the mechanical stuff on structures, people, the general public, generally don't see that.
Right.
Unless they're working in that particular industry, or like general construction. And so I think, yeah, a lot of people. Well, I know if my father hadn't been working for J.A. Wiley Company and really close to retirement, and I think when Wiley's folded, he was only 3 years away from retirement. And I was just the right age to start in the industry. I was in my early 20s. I was still hale, hearty, and pretty much bulletproof.
Yeah.
And, if he hadn't when Wiley's folded, he took over managing 1 or 2 jobs that they still had going on. And then he and my mom decided that, to finish out, until he was old enough to hit full retirement, she'd take out a contractor's license, and he'd had all sorts of contacts in the construction industry and in the Portland area, and actually all over the country. And so he was, he was able to keep busy, but he needed a helper. And so I wasn't doing it. I was just doing the wildlife art. And he says, hey, he says, I need a helper. He says, you want to come over and you want to be my helper? And I'm like, get to work for Dad? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I like that. And that started me on just an absolutely incredible journey, meeting all sorts of amazing people, you included. And I really want to encourage younger people, or even people, in their 30s or 40s, to look at some of the construction trades at least, or at least learn about them. Maybe they can, they can get their kids hooked on them.
Yeah. Or just to be familiar with things.
Right.
Helps even if you're doing your own work at home.
Exactly.
House,
Exactly.
Just to have a basis of how things are made, how they're put together can really be helpful.
So, how has your style changed over the years?
Well, a lot of it has to do with starting out. When I first started, I was going by the laws of Mosaic. So I was everything in the original laws of Mosaic, everything that you created was made out of little squares. So you didn't have various shapes, and it was all squares. And so, as you can see with that little piece up there. And so, as I started expanding a little bit with cutting the glass comes, it's a Byzantine style glass, and it comes in this size. It's little and it's very crude, and so I started experimenting with cutting different shapes, because it comes basically square, it has 4 sides. And what I realized over time was that if I could start making smaller pieces, I could create flow. And what I found is that the more flow I create, the more movement the piece has. That means that I can look at a piece of art in the morning and it looks one way, and in the afternoon when the light's hitting it different, it's gonna look different. And so it's more of a living art form. It really moves with the light.
Wow, that had not occurred to me.
It's really wonderful, and by changing the shapes, that's what creates the flow for me. That's what I think really helps enhance the flow.
And I see that in this piece right here.
Yeah.
So much so.
And once a piece is grouted, then like all of this that is kind of a pattern in just white, the pattern itself will show up distinctly, because the grout, I always use, almost always use natural gray grout, which is traditional color, and
yeah, that's traditional.
it ages well, and and it merges well with all the different color palette, and so, but it brings out the flow and the movement of the glass. So that's what I really like about
I
it.
can see where that gray grout would be more traditional, because back in the day they didn't have this kind of stuff.
No.
Yeah, it was all fresh set.
Yes, it was, and they didn't actually use grout either in any kind of mosaics that were not on the floor, that were above your head, and those were where they used glass.
Oh, okay.
Small t.
Yeah.
And that was traditionally not grouted, but the floors, which were mostly stone and marble chips, that was grouted because it had to be filled.
Yeah.
And so, but I grout all of it because I just think it gives it a very finished feel, and it holds up real well that way, and it's just my style.
Yeah. Current projects.
Yes. So
and that.
this is just a piece that I drew several years ago, I think. Actually, for a while I was doing a lot of whimsical pieces, and this will be a framed piece. I just did it when I was in between commissions, and so this piece I might be able to sell it, but we'll just see what happens. But I have this out here because I'm currently working on it, but I'm also currently working on this commission. And the commission is a dragon for a swimming pool floor. Yeah. And it's quite large. The dragon is like 20 feet long, and it's just a palette of aquas and blues and purple and yellow and gold, and I don't know if you want to turn the camera to show the picture. So the job that I'm working on now is probably going to take me about 3 months to do. It's about how many square feet? 80 square feet, I think, close to 100 square feet.
Wow.
And so there's plenty of work to do in it, and it's very labor intensive. But that's my current project. I just finished a project where I did a mosaic on a ceiling, actually, in a house at the coast, and it was very fun because we created, the contractor and I created a tray, which is a recessed area in the ceiling, and it has pendant lights coming out of it. And so in this tray is a mosaic that has a lot of gold in it, and it's very much a abstract, so it's got just a lot of movement. So it's a lot like being under the water, the movement of water. So so that was a fun one to do. And the one before that was quite large, actually. I did a bathroom, all the walls and the floor.
What is the toilet sitting on?
It's sitting.
Is it a lily pad, or just?
It's sitting on a little island.
Oh, a little island. That's brilliant. It
was a fun job.
Describe that one.
Yeah, that was really a great job. And but the interesting thing about that job was, I'll divulge this. The woman whose home it is a wonderful woman, and we've become friends. And she was a great client. But she had the original idea was to have quite a large shower, and it was going to be tile all the way, or mosaic all the way up, and a mosaic floor. And then the rest of the bathroom also had a mosaic wainscot that was going to go around. Wow. Well, it ended up in the middle that they made some changes, and so she wanted to make that big shower a walk-in closet, but the mosaic was already on it. So they covered all the mosaic with wood, with like paneling, to make it her closet, and then I started over and did the whole bathroom. So
Wow.
Someday somebody will go in there and it'll be like a archaeological find, you know, and they rip the tile, the wood off the walls.
Well, the way people build, hopefully that house is built well enough to last.
It is.
Yeah.
It is
You know,
an amazing
somebody
old
will come in and
house.
be like that mausoleum in London.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's what's fun about it. But yeah, so I've done some really interesting work. You know, a lot of diversity, really. You know, outside I've done a lot of water features and other pools and just you can do it. You can put mosaic anywhere. You know, it's designed to hold up.
Yeah.
I guess what I think is awesome is to see people be able to let go of their self-inflicted limitations that we put on ourselves
Yeah, there you go.
with fear and to just try new things and to just there is so much satisfaction in trying something new, even when you're afraid to try it, and discovering that you can do it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's one of my favorite things. And that's why I like giving workshops, because I've had people come in and say to me, oh, I'm not artistic. And they leave with a piece of art that they can't believe they did.
There you go.
And it's a wonderful thing to see people find something in themselves that they didn't know they had.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite things.
How often do you give the workshops?
I don't give them very often because usually I'm busy with commissions, but occasionally in between commissions I'll give workshops. And I don't have a very big space, so it has to be an intimate workshop. But they're usually a 3-day workshop that starts Friday evening and ends Sunday, and so they're small pieces that people can create within that time.
Yeah.
But people love it, and I have people all the time saying, when are you going to give another workshop? And so I kind of have a list of people that I call when I feel like I can give a workshop. So
Well, see, there's your second, your third career is when you get old enough that you don't want to, or get to the point where you don't want to do commercial work, you could teach.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think it would be fun. My dream for this, actually, as I go on in this career, is that I'd like to be able to, I'd like to have a bigger studio that I could then, because I like doing large pieces. I like doing big work, and you need a big space for big work. But I think it would be wonderful to be able to have a couple of people at some point apprenticing. And because I love design work, and I would love to do the design work and then oversee a lot of the creation.
Yeah, well, that's how a lot of the old masters worked. Is they had apprentices. You know? Everybody thinks Leonardo da Vinci painted all those all by himself. But he didn't. That's why we have artists who can do that kind of work now, is because you know, I have a saying is that information, knowledge, experience that isn't shared is worthless.
That's really
I mean,
true.
it's not worthless to the people the person who has it, but when you're gone, you're gone. Having apprentices and teaching workshops is one of the greatest things you can do beyond, you know, the artwork that you're doing. I would love to see you be able to have a larger workshop and have an apprentices, because, you know, this is not something, you know, something that a person could, you know, kind of maybe figure out just looking at mosaics, but you really need you need a maestro to train on.
Well, it's true. I mean, I did. I mean, that's why I went to Ravenna, you know, because I didn't know where to start. And the things that I have learned and that I do differently. There's things that are different here than they are in Europe. They don't have lime paste here because of the environmental quality, and so you have to use different things, and it's just being able to understand the process of how to make all this stuff stick and have it stay forever. You know, or what kind of materials to use so that, just like so that they don't freeze if you're doing an outdoor piece.
Right.
I mean, many people just take broken tile and make mosaics, but then it freezes and the glaze pops off and they've ruined their beautiful piece, you know, because of their lack of understanding of the trades. And you know, it's worth it to learn about what you want to do. It's worth it to learn the details and the history and, you know, why things are done the way they are.
Critical importance that information is shared.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one thing for somebody wants to do mosaic, either as a hobby or maybe they want to do some mosaic work that would be sold as artwork, and like you have with I love that tiger. To do something like that, but to really keep mosaic alive, it needs to be in the construction industry. It needs to be out there in the for the public to see as a part of as a decorative finish on a structure. And in order for that to happen, we have to have apprentices training. You got to keep that conveyor belt of work and knowledge and expanding and innovation going.
It's really true, and when you spend a lifetime, I mean, I'm starting to get older. I've spent a lot of years in the construction industry, and when you spend a lifetime, you accumulate a lot of experience and a lot of information, and to be able to pass that on is really a gift. I mean, it's a gift for me to be able to pass it on, and it's a gift for the person who's receiving it.
Exactly.
It's a good thing. And so, I agree. I think that I like the idea of being able to share knowledge,
Alrighty, well, we covered pretty much everything you'd like to cover,
I think
at least
so.
for the moment.
Yeah.
I think so.
I would love to come back when you get that thing installed.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh
That'd
yeah.
be cool.
Oh, I was like, I need to win the lottery so I can hire you. I need to win the lottery so I can set you up in a studio.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I really was hoping that I could do the whole floor. That's why I designed the whole floor. I mean, the homeowner absolutely loved it, but it's 400 square feet.
Oh, that's a big mosaic.
It's a big mosaic, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
I mean, just the dragon is plenty of money, but to do the whole thing, and it would have taken a year, so he wouldn't have his pool till next year.
Yeah.
So, I understand, he had to cut back, but it would have been really fun to do that whole floor.
Oh, yeah.
Then I could have really had an excuse to rent a big space. And
Oh, there you go. And then you could have taken on apprentice.
Yeah.
That's what, My selection from the realm of awesome is a science communication network. Microbe TV hosts a group of podcasts covering various biological sciences. Microbe TV started out with This Week in Virology and has grown now to 11 or 12 separate podcasts that cover virology, infectious diseases, parasitism, neuroscience, microbiology, and immunology, as well as a show called Office Hours, a weekly Q&A live show hosted by Vincent Racaniello, a PhD virology professor and one of the founders of Microbe. I've been listening to their shows for years and continue to do so. If you're interested in any of the branches of science they cover, head on over to microbe.tv and check them out. I'll put a link to the website in the YouTube description as well as in the show notes for this episode at thisisconstruction.net. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, learned something, and that Mimi and I have piqued your interest in the construction trades, or at least in the art and craft of mosaic. If you'd like to know more about Mimi's work, please check out her website where you can find more information about her and the work that she does. There's a link in the description for this video, as well as in the show notes for this episode over at thisisconstruction.net. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. It'll help with the stats and the algorithm. Also, if you work in any part of the construction industry, be that as a trades worker, maybe work in management, safety, or any of the support industries associated with construction projects, and would like to find out about being a guest, please feel free to contact me via email, rigudojoanne@gmail.com. If you're curious as to how I go about working with potential guests and would like to see an outline of the script that I use for interviews, you can visit the pod's website and view samples, or again, shoot me an email and I can send you a PDF. Eventually, and this is a part of the future plans for the pod, I would like to partner with general and subcontractors to document projects and parts of projects so that people can learn about what's involved in working on various types of builds, be they new construction, remodels, residential, commercial, etc. I think that would be very interesting to people who work in construction as well as to those who don't. So if you are a contractor and would be interested in working with me on something like that, shoot me an email, again, rigudojoanne@gmail.com. So, this is construction. Now, what's your story?